We're joined now by Amy, who will share her story. Amy, please start whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Amy Irvin. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the New Orleans Abortion Fund, which provides financial assistance to people seeking abortion care in Louisiana. As we've been talking today, a lot of people feel shame or stigma around their abortion experiences, and that's why we don't often hear public stories about abortion care. That's certainly been the case for me. I have had 2 abortions, one when I was a 21-year-old college student in Cincinnati, and a second one 20 years later when I lived in New Orleans. And it's taken a lifetime of experiences and 20 years to be able to share my abortion stories. Both experiences are important, and also that I survived the trauma of a sexual assault in 2008, which has led me to start an abortion fund in 2012. So I don't remember much about my first abortion. I was a college student studying graphic design at the University of Cincinnati and doing an internship in Atlanta. I remember feeling a lot of panic and resolve to terminate the pregnancy. I didn't want to be a single parent like my mother, who had had 2 kids when she was 21. And I wanted to finish college and start a career. I didn't have much support, either emotionally or financially, from my parents, and I didn't tell them that I was pregnant. But I felt an obligation to tell the guy involved, and so I drove from Atlanta to Cincinnati to tell him. I remember running out of gas somewhere in Kentucky and having to ask the gas station attendant for $20, which I promised to pay back when I returned within 24 hours. I didn't even think to make an appointment in Atlanta, which would have been much easier for me. I wanted the support of my friends, and so I decided to make an appointment at a clinic in Cincinnati. The clinic there had gates and protesters. I asked the doctor a lot of questions, and I remember the nurse being very sympathetic, which I found to be annoying. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers to my questions. And at the time, there was no waiting period, so I was able to be seen all in one day. And afterwards, I traveled home to Atlanta. And I don't think my college roommates really even knew why I was there. I didn't tell them. My second experience, or my second abortion experience, was much different in that I was older and I didn't have to worry about paying for the abortion. But I did think a lot more about being a parent and my experience or my identity as a woman. I thought a lot about the possibility of being a mother and perhaps the possibility of being a single parent. And in the end, I just decided to terminate the pregnancy. So I made an appointment at Women's Healthcare Center in New Orleans, which is now one of 4 abortion providers in Louisiana. And I remember that the day of my appointment, the waiting room was very crowded, with women there from Baton Rouge whose appointments had to be rescheduled because a physician had recently died. And the women from Baton Rouge were very concerned about getting back home to pick up their children from school or from childcare. And they were angry about having to drive an extra hour to get to the clinic and spend extra money in gas. And they were angry about the restrictions that were in place that were making getting health care more burdensome, including the 24-hour waiting period, which requires a second visit then to the clinic. And although I was early enough in my pregnancy to have the medical abortion, I still had to go to the clinic for the ultrasound and the blood work and the counseling, right? And so while I didn't have to worry about paying for the abortion, the ultrasound was so intrusive that I don't even remember it. What I remember most is the banner above the receptionist's desk that said, "No abortion funding accepted." And having some experience with abortion funding myself, I wondered why and what were the circumstances around that. So in being in the clinic that day, I realized how much had changed in 20 years and how much more difficult it was to get an abortion now, especially in Louisiana where there are so many restrictions. And I thought someone should do something. And in the end, it was me that did something, and Jesse Nieblis, who co-founded the fund with me. And since we began making pledges, we've assisted more than 800 women in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast region. So I realize now that my abortion experiences aren't unusual, that my abortion story is really common. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't begin to share my story or to listen to other women who have since shared their stories with me. It's been a gift and a way of healing, actually, for me. So, as we know and will probably be discussed today, 1 in 3 U.S. women will have an abortion by the time they're 45. So we shouldn't feel ashamed about our decisions around health care, which we are making in the best interests of ourselves and for our families.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What an incredible story.
Thank you.
What do you want legislators to know as they are making decisions about abortion access?
Well, so the New Orleans Abortion Fund does a lot of work on the state level. And certainly we know that abortion access is being threatened on a state and federal level more so than any time before. And certainly under a Trump administration and with a possible Supreme Court justice nominee, abortion access is going to be very difficult. But it's always and has been difficult for women seeking abortion care in many states where it's all but inaccessible. And I think it's more important than ever to tell our stories now because of the possibility of further restrictions or losing this right, but also because women and families are already under a lot of pressure and experiencing just under a lot of pressure already, and the policies that are being put forth by this administration is going to be more problematic and harmful to women, families in our communities.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Amy, and thank you for all the amazing things that you do at the New Orleans Abortion Fund.
Thank you so much.